It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump.
So it's,
Craig Price is the man.
I knew it. Craig, shut up. It's Reality Check with Craig Price. This week, Alan Cerny is here to go over our 2016 Oscar predictions. Thanks for listening. This is our 6th season and our 5th straight Oscar prediction show. You know, it's hard to believe it's been 5 years with Alan. So to celebrate, we have a huge plus-sized episode for you, packed to the gills with who we think should have been nominated, who we think will win, and who we want to win. We cover the big 6 categories: Best Supporting Actor and Actress, Best Actress and Actor, Best Director, and Best Picture. We always get good feedback from these shows, so I hope you enjoy and play along with us to see who was right and who was wrong. Before we start, it is February, which means longtime friend of the show, Tom Singer, is hosting a fundraiser for craniofacial research benefiting Dell Children's Medical Foundation. His daughter, Kate, was born with a condition called sagittal synostotis and required surgery to rebuild her skull at age 6 months. Thankfully, everything was a huge success for Kate, who is now 14, so each February, Tom raises money to help others who are born with craniofacial abnormalities. Now, over time, these fundraisers and Tom's contributions have grown to over $50,000 to both Dell Children's and Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego. You can learn more about their efforts at tomsinger.com/give-back. But more importantly, please donate at, and this is a long URL, crowdrise.com/9th for 9th. So number 9th annual fundraiser for the Kate Singer Endowment for Craniofacial Research. I will, of course, have that link on the website, realitycheckpodcast.com. It's very long, but I do want you to donate. It's an important cause. So if you're ready, sit back, settle in as Alan and I pick our 2016 Oscar predictions. Let's be honest, this year's batch of Oscars is poor to sad.
You know, the hashtag online is Oscars so white. It really should be Oscars so dull. You know,
Yeah.
It's just dull this year. I agree with the whole, there should be more interesting films in here. There was a lot of interesting movies came out last year, and they just didn't make it to the top. You know, my
and the
favorite,
ones that did,
yeah.
I mean, the people that made it, there are some nominations, and we'll talk about them all. I don't understand how they even got there. I mean, there are people who did very serviceable jobs, which is a sad thing to say at the Oscars. They did a very serviceable job of their parts. And sometimes their parts were so small and inadequate, I don't understand how they got nominated.
I don't know if it's a nomination so much as Best Gift Basket.
I'm thinking it is Best Marketing Campaign.
Yeah.
Harvey Weinstein wrote some checks.
Holy crap, I got an iPod this year. Well, they're getting in the nomination. Yeah. I'm not saying it's corrupt. I'm just saying they're corrupt.
Yeah, no, I was looking at the gift baskets. They were talking about the gift baskets they're going to have for people who go to the Oscars, and there's like trips to Japan with tours and stuff. It's like the value of a gift bag.
Why are they giving famous people more famous things when they already have money? I don't understand. Like Leonardo DiCaprio doesn't need another trip to Japan. He can just fly his own plane. You know, look, I'm on record. The ranking of art to me is kind of inherently offensive. There are things that I prefer over others, but it's a cattle call of ranking art, and I do not agree with the entire concept of the Oscars. That said, watching it is fun because we all have a competitive streak in us. We all want to root for something, even in politics or art or religion or anything like that. We all have this thing that's like, well, my thing is better than your thing, and it's just inherent in human nature. And so you watch the Oscars with that in mind, but at the same time, I think it's and this year especially, because I totally agree with Oscars so white. I think it's BS that we have, there are some great performances from a lot of great actors. Michael B. Jordan in Creed. A lot of the performances in Straight Outta Compton. A lot of the stuff this year is just, I don't know, man. It just kind of ticks me off. You know, Oscar Isaac in Ex Machina should have been nominated. a lot of performances. You know, and like Straight Outta Compton, let's take that up. A lot of people are griping about how that wasn't nominated for Best Picture. I agree that it should have been nominated for Best Picture because I've seen some of the biopics that have been nominated for Best Picture, and they're not any better than that one. Straight Outta Compton has the same problem as a lot of biopics are. It's too long. It has a lot of information to put together in a limited amount of time, and so some of it drags, some of it's kind of dull, but some of it's really good. And you know, every biopic like that. The Imitation Game is like that. You know,
yeah.
You know, there's a ton of them like that. So it's no better or worse than the other biopics. Why wasn't it nominated? It's just kind of a dull year, and I'm not advocating for diversity just for diversity's sake. I'm saying that the movies, for the most part, they picked were boring.
Yeah, and I think
know?
Unfortunately the Oscars is getting the fallout from the industry in general. I don't think it's the Oscars' fault to some degree that they voted. I think it's the lack of
Well, yeah, that
movies
too.
in general.
That too.
And
The Oscars can only vote for what's out there. At the same time, there is stuff out there they could have went for, but I understand too. It's like it's industry wide. It's not just the voters. It's people who casting directors, really. Marketing.
Yeah, it's market.
You know,
I think it's more marketing
because and the fact is they take somebody like John Boyega off the Star Wars poster in China because they assume that the Chinese people can't handle an African American. Well, he's not African American. He's British, but an African British person on the poster. You know that's just crazy. It's all and it becomes more of a marketing thing. It becomes more of how can we sell this movie, and it's like, so what? These are artistic endeavors; they should be treated as such.
And then you hear all the complaints about. So if they put a person of color in a position like, oh, there's going to be possibly a black Spider-Man. What? No, Spider-Man is this. No, Spider-Man is a bunch of things. It's not. Or when Michael B. Jordan became the Human Torch, there was a big backlash. It's like
Nerd casting is the worst casting, dude.
But there shouldn't be backlash at all. It's like, is he a
cares?
good actor?
Who cares?
Can he fit the
I want to
position?
know if it's going to be a movie that's going to entertain me
Yeah.
and inspire me and give me emotions, and that's really all I care about.
Well, let's find out if that happened, because as we go through the categories, and I will announce everybody in there, and then we'll talk about who we want to win and who we think will win.
And I'm going to add a little thing as to who should be in this spot too.
Yeah, you go right ahead.
Because I think there's a lot of them that and I'm trying to stick with one person, but there's a lot of them.
Well, that's fine. You saw a lot more movies than I did this year. In fact, the last 2 weeks I've been scrambling to watch all of the nominees because I get into that fallacy that, oh yeah, I can go see the best pictures at the end at the big the AMC has that big best picture thing.
Yeah.
But then I go, oh no, I have to see that before then because I got the podcast to do. And so I need to get out more when it comes out and see them versus just kind of waiting until they all at the end and then just see as many movies as I can.
Yeah, and a lot of the performance pieces didn't get nominated for Best Picture. There's a ton of them out there this year. Steve Jobs was nominated for Best Picture, even though it's a good movie.
Well, let's get into that. We'll start with the Best Supporting Actress, and that will be Jennifer and Jason Leigh from The Hateful Eight. She had 9 lines, so that's still good. Rooney Mara from Carol, Rachel McAdams from Spotlight, Alicia Vikander, The Danish Girl, and Kate Winslet in Steve Jobs. So for me, because I've been already talking about it, I want to jump on this right away. There is one person who I believe definitely should not even be in this category because not that she did a bad job, she did a serviceable job. I thought any human being could have, man or woman, could have been swapped out for her, and it would have not have changed the quality of the part or the thing. Rachel McAdams in Spotlight was such a non-entity. I mean, her character had some things to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think she brought anything that anybody else couldn't have brought. I mean, when I see it, I don't go, wow, she did a really good job at that. I just said, oh, well, she was part of the process.
The thing about Spotlight is it's such an ensemble piece where there is nobody really lead. I mean, you could kind of argue for Michael Keaton, but as a whole, it is such an ensemble piece. Everybody does bring their stuff to the film, but nobody is over anybody else. I mean, to go off the script a little bit, even the scene where Mark Ruffalo has his outburst in Spotlight, right?
His Oscar moment.
It's an Oscar moment all over it, and it could be cut right out of the movie. I mean, you could have that scene without all the histrionics and the emotion in it, and it would still be just as effective, but it's that moment, and I guarantee that it's going to be the moment that they play at the Oscars.
Oh, sure.
For him this year,
What moment are they going to show for her?
Well,
because every moment she has is very low-key, she's talking to
I
another
think
person.
she'll have a moment. I think the moment they have her with is when she's interviewing one of the abuse victims at the restaurant or the coffee house or something. But even then, it's hard to tell. I think
hard to tell.
It's a good performance. It's a very ensemble performance.
I think it's
And
a solid performance,
and it fits into the film as a whole. But it defines how we expect best supporting actress. Is it somebody who's going to be screaming at the top of their lungs with a range emotional moment?
It doesn't have to be that.
Or is it somebody who does what they're supposed to do and it's serviceable? But serviceable sounds like it's not a compliment because she does good work in the film. It's just not one of those movies that has a moment, and it's not supposed to. The moment it does have doesn't feel right when you see it.
To me, it's like it's like watching someone. Are they walking to the store for groceries, or are they walking to the store with groceries with a baby and a backpack and all this other stuff? So there's other things they got to do. So there's actually some work involved. Because like I said, I really don't think any other person if they had been swapped out, would have diminished that role. And that's how I figure. I think you would have gotten someone different with Mark Ruffalo. I think you would have gotten something different if it wasn't Michael Keaton. I think you would have got something different with Rachel McAdams' performance. For me, when I saw it, I didn't think anybody else who's a known name could have walked in there and done a bad or worse job.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. It's a part, and she plays the part how she plays the part. And
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything about her ability. I'm just saying, is that best supporting actress? There were other people who did other things who deserved more recognition.
Maybe. Well, I'll tell you what. There's a performance that is nominated for Best Supporting Actress, for which, to be fair, I haven't seen The Danish Girl.
Oh, really?
No.
She's this is Alicia Vikander. She's very good in it.
And I hear that.
In fact, she's better than Eddie Redmayne.
I hear that too. And
she's naked.
Well, okay.
Did you hear that?
Well, I've seen that already because what I'm
She was
getting.
Ex Machina.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I have no idea how good or bad The Danish Girl is, but I do know how good Ex Machina is, which was one of the best films of the year, and I would have happily taken The Danish Girl out of this and put Ex Machina in it for her because she is amazing in that movie. Now, she may be amazing in The Danish Girl. I haven't seen it.
She is. I will say, because that's my pick for not only who I want to win, because of all the people there, I think she deserves it, but I think also she's got the steam and the PR behind her. To people know it, people have seen it, because I didn't think The Danish Girl was a movie worth nominating because it wasn't that great of a movie, but her performance in it is very good.
Did you see Ex Machina?
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah. I thought she was very good in that as well.
Yeah. Would you say she's better in that than this? Or,
I do, but also knowing, again, you want to talk about Oscar too white. Oscar too old, Oscar no science fiction-y.
And Oscar no
why,
horror, Oscar no science sci-fi, even though they kind of broke the bound a little bit this year.
I don't think enough voters saw Ex Machina.
That's too bad because it's a stunningly good movie.
She was better in that.
Yeah.
But she was very good in this.
Okay.
And now Jennifer Jason.
But if we could swap it for The Danish Girl for Ex Machina, I would be happy with that.
I would do it in a second.
Yeah.
Right. I would have no complaints about that because I thought she was good in both movies. In fact, having seen her, saw what she did, and then I looked her up because I wanted to see some of the other movies she's been in. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that was her.
Yeah. She's been around in Hollywood for a while, but now this year is where she kind of broke loose.
Yeah, so she does good work all the time. So what did you think about, we'll go down the list here, because like I said, Jennifer Jason Leigh, The Hateful Eight.
I loved her in that movie.
She was great and bitter and miserable. And now, I wasn't sure she was in it long enough.
Well, you know what? I have no problem with her being nominated Best Supporting Actress because, Anthony Hopkins was nominated for Best Actor.
Well,
and Silence of the Lambs, he's only in it for 23 minutes.
And Judi Dench won for 7 minutes.
So, no. And her presence is felt throughout the entire movie, even if she's not talking.
Oh, no, she did a great job.
Yeah, so...
And no one looked up as... she did a great job being miserable through blood.
Well, one of the great things about her performance to me is that you're never, even at the very end, never sure whether you're supposed to feel bad for her or not. She's an evil
she makes
person.
It hard.
She's a very evil person, but nobody deserves to get punched in the face like that. But maybe she does. We don't know. And that's the skill of what Quentin Tarantino has done, and why Hateful Eight isn't here for more listings for awards. I have no idea. I think it's one of the best films of last year, and it should have been nominated for a lot more than just this and a couple other things. But she's great in it, and she is an evil, hateful person. But at the same time, Does she deserve what happens to her? I'm not sure. And the great thing about this film is that it doesn't answer that question for you. You've got to answer it yourself. You know?
Sure. And I was going to say there are definitely some clues, though, that kind of tell you, without spoiling stuff. I mean, there's things that happen where she definitely shows and says things that show that she is willing to kill every person there. She is willing to do whatever horrible thing she has to do to get free.
I have to talk about one scene in particular. You may have read about this, where Jennifer Jason Leigh is playing the song, basically saying, "Hey, I'm going to kill everybody in this room." The song. And she's playing on this really nice old guitar, right? And then after she basically tells Kurt Russell, "Hey, your ass is going to be killed," he takes that guitar and smashes it against the wall. And she has this reaction. She goes, "Ah!" and she freaks out, right? She says, what the hell, you know? Well, the fact is about that guitar, it's not a great acting moment from Jennifer Jason Leigh. It's really her being genuinely surprised because that guitar was on loan from a museum. It was a 125 years old antique guitar. It was supposed to be swapped out at that moment so she could smash another guitar, or Kurt Russell could smash another guitar, but he actually broke their 125-year-old antique guitar. And so her reaction is genuine in that moment. I think it's hilarious and awesome that actually happened. I feel really bad for the museum that loaned it out, but at the same time, I'm going, that's a really great scene, you know?
It was. I mean, and Kurt Russell, the fact that he's not nominated for something, I thought he did a good job too. But Jennifer Jason Leigh, I thought she was really good in it. We get to Rooney Mara and Carol.
Rooney Mara and Carol is really good. She deserves to be here. Carol is one of those movies that I know a lot of film critics really embraced it, really because Todd Haynes is a great director. Carol's a good movie, but Todd Haynes has made some really great movies in the past. He made Far From Heaven, and he made I'm Not There, the kind of sort of biopic of Bob Dylan, and I really love those movies. I like those more than I like this one. Carol is a really good, solid, kind of romantic, sweeping film. I don't know if it would have gotten the attention that it got had it been about, well, obviously it wouldn't have. It had been about a heterosexual relationship because of the relationship between Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara, and it's so scandalized at the time the film was made, or it's in the 50s. It's a good movie. It's not great, but she's very good in it, and she deserves to be here. She puts a lot in her eyes because she doesn't say a lot.
No, I was going to say it's a very subdued performance.
Yeah.
Unlike Rachel McAdams, where like I said, hers was subdued. Mara's was subdued, but she's doing some heavy lifting throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, because she's basically our surrogate. And so we're watching her and her go through these emotions and these feelings.
And she's struggling with her feelings.
She can't articulate it very well because she's a quiet person.
And then she's engaged to another guy.
Yeah.
Engaged,
sort of engaged quotes. You know, he thinks he's engaged. She doesn't really.
She's doing what she's supposed to do in society, and that's find a guy, and they're supposed to get married. But she never really commits that far because she's got these what she thinks is these strange feelings for Cate Blanchett's character, Carol. Yeah. I thought she did a great job of showing that.
Yeah, and she's very good in the film. I liked her a lot. And then when we move on to Kate Winslet in Steve Jobs, who is excellent in that movie, and I had no idea it was her until like halfway through the first time I was watching the film, because I tend not to look at the casting stuff like that. It's weird when I go watch a film. Casting is kind of the last thing on my mind until the end of it when I figure out who played what. But when I'm watching it, it's not Michael Fassbender, it's Steve Jobs.
No,
right?
My problem is that I can, even if they're not, I don't know if I can go into a movie blind and immediately recognize all the actors. And so to the point where my wife won't let me watch like crime dramas with her on TV because I'll see a not a third tier character actor that only comes in to play the bad guy, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's so and so, and so my brain doesn't work that way. I saw her right away. It was the accent that threw me.
Yeah,
not in a bad way, in a good way.
Well, she has this demeanor about her that's really Winslet-y, I guess, the way to pronounce it, because you see her in everything, and she feels it's not like she's not playing the same character. She's not. It's just that there's a pace and a tone to her when she speaks, especially in a Sorkin movie where it requires some serious heavy lifting dialogue-wise. But I loved her in this film. She's really great. She is exactly what she does, is support, which she supports, basically supporting Michael Fassbender's performance, who is a firecracker in this movie.
Oh, yeah. No, he plays a character that's not even that likable. So of these people, I think we both agree that Alicia Vikander is probably the strongest in this category.
Yeah.
So who do you want to win?
I want Jennifer Jason Leigh to win.
Okay.
for a couple reasons. One, she's outstanding even when she's not doing dialogue, and two, because The Hateful Eight is a really great movie, and I don't think it got the attention it deserved. I think that people were going off on it as a Tarantino movie, and actually it is something that has a lot to say about race relations in this country, even if it is a Western. And I think she's my favorite of all these performances.
Who do you think will actually take it home?
Probably Alicia Vikander.
Okay.
Probably her.
Yeah.
But if she takes it home, I'm going to squint and say it's for Ex Machina. It's like, you have a lot of years where it's like, well, for me personally, they didn't win for this performance. They won for a performance I liked them more in.
And supporting actress, often it's one of two ways. I think the supporting category is either a Lifetime Achievement Award or Rookie of the Year. It's
Right.
one of those two. So when you see, actually almost every person here has some experience.
Right.
There's not a new person in the bunch. There may be some new people to you or to the audience, but there's not a new person who's not been working for 10, 15 years.
Right.
I think it's going to be Alicia, and I think she deserves it. So I agree with your Jennifer Jason Leigh for the reasons. I think the movie itself probably should have got more recognition, but it's not a team sport.
No. You're right.
And so, but let's move on to supporting actor, because there's a couple people in there that I think we both agree that really are outstanding.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's a solid lineup all the way through.
So let's go down the list. Christian Bale for The Big Short, Tom Hardy for The Revenant, Mark Ruffalo for Spotlight, Mark Rylance for Bridge of Spies, Sylvester Stallone for Creed. So right off the bat, the Christian Bale I think he is the weakest link. Not that he did a bad job, but if they had said Steve Carell, The Big Short, would you have complained?
Well, Steve Carell really is lead of that movie, though. To me, that's close. It's a close call.
I think that was an ensemble thing where I don't think that anybody was the lead. But I thought that Christian Bale was all right.
He's good. Steve Carell is great. Everybody's great in that movie. That's one of those interesting films where it's like it's a lot of information to be thrown at the audience in a very entertaining manner, and it's a weird kind of almost documentary in that way. But
I call it the most expensive Discovery Channel / History Channel movie ever, because it's perfect to show on the History Channel, to show the history of the financial collapse, because not only does it tell you what happened, but it explains some of the intricacies, because credit swaps and all these other terms, a lot of these more difficult terms that I can't even remember. I just know CDOs, IDOs, all these things.
Yeah.
They did a great job of explaining it without you getting bored.
Right.
And that's very difficult to do. So Christian Bale played kind of the spectrum character.
Yeah, he is the one who sees everything happening, and he's one of the first people who realizes what's happening. And I liked him in that. He's kind of quirky. He likes metal music. He reads crappy fantasy novels. He plays drums, and he has his own idiosyncrasies about him. But he's really good in the movie. If it was between him and Steve Carell, I'd probably go Carell. Carell has a more he's very angry in that film, and I like the passion in Carell's performance. Christian Bale it's not, but again, it's not the kind of role it was, but it's a role where he's totally a number cruncher, and if it had went the other way, he would have went the other way. It's not he didn't have any personal investment in any of the loss of all people losing their homes or jobs, the financial crash. He's just basically, look, this is the facts. This is what I know. And everybody's yelling to him saying, how could you say that? The housing market is the most stable market in the American economy. And all this other stuff, people losing their homes or jobs, it doesn't really occur to him. He's just basically, don't shoot the messenger guy.
Yeah, he takes the human element out of it, and it's just numbers. It's like, look, this is how it's going to go, and it's going to go not this year, it's going to go mid-year next year. And then what he didn't account for, and which nobody accounted for, was how weaselly the rating bureaus were in the banks. So, so he was telling the numbers, and everything did come to pass. It just didn't come to pass at the exact moment because people were fighting it.
It came to pass more worse because of the weasel nature of the banks, who, if they had listened, or at least they didn't have to listen when he said it, but maybe even a year down the road, if they had listened and decided to behave appropriately, the problem may have been solved, or at least not been as bad. It's a good performance. I don't know if it quite qualifies for this, but it's a good one.
Well, I thought a serviceable role. I don't think is going to win, but I thought he did a great job, and it was in Bridge of Spies. Mark Rylance.
Mark Rylance is outstanding.
He did
in
a
that
great
movie.
job. I mean,
outstanding.
It's his lack of passion, because you want to talk about Steve Carell's passion. His lack of passion, because he doesn't get upset, and even Tom Hanks keeps going, you never get worried, do you? And he's like, will it help? And he's asking that legitimately, and he's also asking it in a philosophical way. It's like, yeah, I'm screwed. You want me to scream and yell and cry? Is that going to help? If it does, I will, but but I don't think it will. So why do it?
Rylance and Hanks had a really great chemistry together too. He's wonderful in this film. One of my favorite parts of the movie is that he is subdued, but at the same time, you can kind of see he feels he's worried. He could see it. Yeah, but at the same time, he is a patriot. He's just not our patriot,
Yeah, had the roles been reversed, he would be the hero of the movie.
Yeah,
if he was an American in Russia and they did the exact same thing, except they changed the words and maybe changed the countries. Instead of Germany, with some other country that would be more fitting to if it was reversed.
Yeah,
he would be the star. He would be the guy we'd be rooting for, and Tom Hanks would be like the supporting guy fighting to get him out.
And his performance is an interesting way to understand that it's all about our perspective. We have a very skewed perspective. And it's just the way it is. I mean, they have a very skewed perspective in Russia. They have a very skewed perspective in Lebanon or Syria, because it's centric to their part of the world. And so our part of the world is very centric to the United States. And so, of course, we're going to consider him a traitor. But he actually does exactly what he was supposed to do. And Tom Hanks points that out. He says he is a patriot for his country. We may not agree with what his country has to say, but he certainly agrees with his country, and he feels like he's doing the right thing. And it makes those shades of gray interesting. What is really right? What is the best way? And I think it's all in his performance. It all opens that up for us to think about all these things. And so, Rylance actually really deserves to be here. If it weren't for another performance, I'll probably be rooting for him.
He definitely has that underdog. Even in the movie, though,
yeah.
you have even though he's like, hey, wait a minute, he's the bad guy, but you're kind of rooting for him because he was doing things wrong in our mind, but he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was doing what he was told to do. He's doing his job.
He wasn't doing anything different than what an American spy would have done in Russia.
Yeah. So that leaves. I think this is really a 3-horse race, and so again, when we talk about supporting, we talk about lifetime achievement, and I think Sylvester Stallone. He has a serious chance at getting this because of that. Not only did they do a good job in Creed, from what you said, I didn't get to see Creed. That's the one, that and Joy are the 2 movies I didn't get to see. You say that, I know you go crazy about Sylvester Stallone and Creed. Is he deserving because he was able to elevate it enough, or is this a Lifetime Achievement Award?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. Of the 5, I don't know if it's best, but of the 5 performances here, it's definitely my favorite because.
Well, not having seen it, what did he do differently that he besides being old and cranky? Because I'm assuming.
There's a whole aspect of him. He's sick. He has cancer, and again, it's one of those things like, well, you have the Oscar, the illness of the month sort of performance. I understand that. I'm not any much of a fan of those as other people. I think that's a kind of a cheap way to get people's sympathy. But at the same time, this is an iconic character that has stood the test of time for 40 years. It's gone through genuinely great performances, great films, to movies that are
god-awful.
Silly. I'll say silly.
I'll say god-awful.
Silly.
The one with Tommy Morrison, that was stupid.
Yeah.
That was a waste of my 2 hours or whatever that was. I did see that one, so
and it's the whole gamut of of all the work that he's done with this character.
Well, when you have that many sequels, you're not going to hit home runs with all of them.
No, it's just not possible. I mean, I don't like Rocky IV. I think it's montage the movie. I love Rocky III. Rocky III is I don't want to say my favorite Rocky. My favorite Rocky is the first one, but
you have to remind people which ones are which, because Rocky IV is the Russian.
Rocky IV is the Russian.
III is
Rocky
Mr.
III,
T.
Mr. T. Yeah. Rocky II is Apollo Creed again after the first fight, which he loses in Rocky I. But it's yes, it is. It is absolutely. I mean, are we rating the best or are we rating our favorites? And the Oscars never have been about the best. If they had, then it would be a radically different, award season. I really loved Sylvester Stallone in this. I think he was very giving of Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan to allow them to play in this world, in this universe, and make something genuinely powerful at the same time, and just make a really great movie at the same time, because Creed is a great movie. It is only second to the first Rocky as how good it is. And why it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, I don't know. Well, I know why. But
Yeah, I know, because they definitely had extra spots this year.
Yeah.
They can do 10. They got only 8.
Well, there's a bunch of reasons why it wasn't nominated. The Oscars So White thing is actually not even the big one. The big one is that the studio, Warner Brothers, just totally flubbed it. They should have pushed it.
They didn't promote it at all.
They didn't push it right.
Well, the fact that they have to do that is wrong. I mean,
Yeah, but it's a $100 million movie.
That's what I'm saying.
It made a huge profit.
People should remember that it came out, and it did come out during voting time. I mean, it came out Thanksgiving.
They only have so many.
If it had come out in February, I'd understand. You have to remind people. It came out.
Well, it only has. I guess Warner Brothers only has so much marketing muscle behind one particular movie or two, and they can't do all of them. But it's a shame, because it should be Best Picture nominated. It should be Best Director nominated. Michael B. Jordan should be Best Actor nominated. But Stallone is such a giving performance in this. It's very emotional, very rich. His character stays so. I mean, he's. There's just such joy watching him play Rocky. I grew up with these films, and so it's a big deal to me. I guess, you could put Harrison Ford for Han Solo in Best Supporting Actor.
We'll see. Well,
a lot of the same emotions would be there. But I think Stallone was better than Ford.
Okay,
well,
that's the key, because I thought Harrison Ford was fantastic as Han Solo.
Yeah.
Should he be nominated? No. So Sylvester Stallone could have done a great job. I don't know if I didn't see the movie, so I can't tell you that. I do know that he has the backing, because he's been in some good stuff. He's been in a lot of crap. He's been an action star. He's been in Copland.
I think that it's going to be a reward for him to win this award if he wins, because of all he did bring a lot of money into that industry, and they're not going to forget that. So I think he probably will win this performance. I personally think he should, just so I can see Sylvester Stallone, Rocky, get an Oscar. I think it'd be. If he does a Yo Adrian I Did It thing and holds that thing, I'm gonna cry.
I just hope we can understand him.
Oh,
yeah, I mean, it's so good they can't believe it.
It's a really good performance. Okay.
Like I said, I didn't get to see that, and I regret not being able to see it. I will see it as soon as it comes out. Unfortunately, it doesn't come out until
April 1st.
Yeah,
or March
April.
1st. I think it comes out March. Yeah.
It's after the Oscars.
Yeah.
So that leaves the two last ones that I believe are the running that I did see. I think Mark Ruffalo is in Spotlight, did a solid, good job.
It's a really great performance, and he puts the passion in his eyes with that work. You could tell he's mad. Okay, he doesn't. That's the thing about that one moment in Spotlight where he loses it. He didn't need it.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
He was doing a good job before that.
Yeah, he had a passion, and he was a good writer, and he felt like this was an important issue, and he went down. He searched his leads. It's a very good journalism movie.
It's a good process. It's about process.
Yeah,
it's about how you make the decisions, how the higher ups decide.
Yeah.
What the politics come into play when you make those decisions.
Yeah.
Especially when you go up against the Catholic Church in Boston, which
Yeah.
I'm from that area. All those people, Cardinal Law. I mean, I started recognizing names.
Yeah.
So it's not for me. It was like, oh yeah, this completely makes sense to me, because I'm from up there, and at that I wasn't there at the time because it was 2000s when that broke. But I know when they were in the 70s and 80s, I could get the feel, not necessarily that things are going wrong, but I mean how they made it feel like everybody protects themselves and protects the church, and the church can do no wrong.
Right. I
That is definitely there. I don't think the regular folks knew what was going on.
There's this thing about movies like Spotlight and The Departed, and movies about Boston crime, I guess, where everything has a seedy underbelly to it. You don't see it; it's not always there. And then even a movie like Good Will Hunting, where he suppresses his intelligence to be a part of the community.
It's like the Russian mob. It's a lot of things. There's a lot of. I'm not to say that everybody's crooked, and that's not the case at all.
Uh-huh.
But there is a culture of You can't be too smart. You can't be too...
It's a culture of two fronts. The front you show to the public, and then what's really happening.
Even though we have Harvard and MIT and all that stuff, you can't be too smart. You can't be too this. You can be you've got to play the angles there because there's so many other things going on. But I thought Ruffalo was good, and that brings me to what I thought was my favorite performance of the whole thing is Tom Hardy in The Revenant. The Revenant, I'm not a huge fan of. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I thought it was beautifully shot. As a photographer, I loved the way it was shot, all natural lighting. So that if that loses cinematography, they should just cancel that category because that is the definition of a cinematic achievement.
Yes, it has definitely the best cinematography of the film.
But the acting, everybody was fairly good. I thought Tom Hardy was not only a step and above, but it wasn't so crazy because he plays a pretty vile person.
Yeah, he's a villain, really.
But he's not. I didn't think he was the twirling of the mustache.
No. He actually he was doing it to survive. Tom Hardy's performance is better than Leonardo DiCaprio's.
Oh, by far.
By far, it's just better. Leonardo DiCaprio may have heavy lifting. Oh, look, I ate bison meat and slept under a rock and in the snow and like okay.
Well, we'll talk about him more.
But you know, Hardy created a character, and he created a character pretty much out of cloth. You know, basically a character who is a vile individual, but at the same time, you related to what he was doing because and he was never really wrong. He didn't. Who would have expected Hugh Glass, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, to live? You know, of course he didn't live. Nobody survives out in the wilderness like that, and so he may not have been wrong. Now he probably should have checked his sources a bit more, but you know, I'm not. And you know, and then he does vile things. Like definitely, he's a villain of the piece. He kills DiCaprio's son, and he's a pretty hateful monster. But at the same time, you sort of see the humanity in him. You can see the cowardice in him, and Hardy brings a lot of all that to the surface. Here's my thing with Tom Hardy. Every movie I see him in, I have the video at home, the subtitles go on all the time.
He's a mumbler. And, not only is he a mumbler, but sometimes his accents get a little, especially when he does English accents, which is his native tongue. What was the boxing movie he did?
The
Bronson.
Warrior.
No,
Bronson was the one, the guy in prison.
Yeah,
Warrior
but that was I think of that guy as the boxing guy because every time I saw him, he just got his shirt off punching people.
Yeah.
Bronson... God, I could barely understand a word he said in that, too.
Yeah, it's the subtitles come on with Tom Hardy. And, you know, some of the films that he's in, he doesn't even talk a lot. He doesn't talk a lot in Mad Max. And we'll get to Mad Max.
And Bane. And when he played
Bane. It's like, oh, my God.
That wasn't necessarily his fault, but it was
the subtitles. He should walk around with walking subtitles. There should be a guy with cue cards when Tom Hardy's out in public and writing furiously as he speaks and just waving it out. You should have a subtitle guy with him at all times. But... at the same time, he is very, very good in The Revenant. He is the best. Now, you know, there was another film that he was in this year called Legend where he played the Cray brothers. That movie was good, and he's really good in it. He played the Cray twins. Fortunately, the screener did have subtitles on it, but he's really good in that. Houston Film Critics Society actually nominated for Best Actor for him for that performance, but he didn't quite make the cut for the Oscars. But he's really good in Legend, even though the movie it doesn't quite work. It's kind of like Steve Jobs that way. I mean, the movie itself is okay, but his performance is wonderful. But yeah, I mean, and if Tom Hardy won it for this, I wouldn't too much have a problem.
All right, so I think Stallone's going to win it.
Stallone's going to win it. Stallone should win it.
So, and who do you want to win it?
Stallone.
So you want Sylvester? He will win it. I want Tom Hardy to win it, but I think it'll be Sylvester as well.
Yeah.
So Best Actress, we got Cate Blanchett for Carol, Brie Larson for Room, Jennifer Lawrence for Joy, Charlotte Rampling for 45 Years, and Saoirse Ronan for Brooklyn.
Right.
Now, right off the bat, this is my job, is to disqualify people. That's my job. I'm the judgmental one. You're the positive guy. I'm the negative guy.
Okay.
Right off the bat, Jennifer Lawrence and Charlotte Rampling are not doing anything I haven't ever seen them ever do. I mean, Jennifer Lawrence has been pretty much to some degree the same character, or at least in the last David O. Russell movies. Is that the director? Mm-hmm. So Silver Linings Playbook, followed up by American Hustle, followed up by this. She's not really doing much different.
I don't. David Russell, as a director, he's fallen far from grace for me. He used to be one of the best directors out there, and then He made a movie called I Heart Huckabees, which just totally flopped. And it's a really strange movie. It's weird. It's not for everybody. But because of its flop, he kind of fell off the map. He made a movie that didn't actually. It wound up getting released this year, but it was released under a pseudonym because it got cut. It was called Nailed, and then I can't remember, but Jake Gyllenhaal was in it. And then I can't remember the name of the title they changed it to. But he got broke in a lot of ways. And as a director now, he's a safe player. He plays it safe.
Yeah, I'm not blaming her for this because I see her in the Hunger Games. I see her in other stuff.
And
She's good.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, she plays the lady who invented the Swiffer mop or
Oh,
something.
Joy Mangano. My wife knows her. She's on QVC all the time. So
Yeah.
my wife knows her all the time. I'm not saying, and I have nothing against her. The Joy, the lady.
She doesn't belong here as this role. You know what? If they would have given it to her for playing Katniss Everdeen, kind of for the Mockingjay Part 2, I would have no problem with that because I think that is an iconic part.
She's
science
much
fiction.
better in it.
Yeah, and it's just an
Just an
iconic
acting
role,
wise.
and it's one of those. But again, it's science fiction being short shrifted, and we'll talk about Charlize Theron in a minute.
Well, we're going to talk about that because that's going to be your who didn't make it. But
Yeah.
And then Charlotte Rampling, you didn't see this one.
No, I didn't see.
I suffered through it.
I didn't see 45 years. I was gonna watch it. I had the screener, and then she said that really stupid thing.
again.
and I know, and it's a stupid reason to judge, and it's a stupid reason to not see the movie. But when I have a lot of movie to see, and somebody pisses me off by saying something is, it's like, well, you know,
If she was
I'm putting your ass aside for a while, and they just never got to it.
Yeah, but if she was let's be honest, if she was a known actress, and I don't think a lot of people know who she is, when they'll recognize her.
You know
if
how
you've
I
ever watched BBC, you've seen her. And
You know how I
something-
recognize her? She was in a really not a bad movie. I like it. She's in a Jaws knockoff in the 70s called Orca.
Oh, yeah, with Rex Harris.
Yeah, it's Harris, Richard Harris.
Richard Harris, not Rex Harris. Richard Harris. Yeah, I remember that. Oh,
Yeah,
that's-
yeah.
that-
She and it's like, wow, she's being nominated for Orca.
but of course, I'm a BBC guy, so I've seen her on Broadchurch. You see her on everything because BBC.
Yeah.
My wife had a perfect example. She said, "You know how everyone says that your life can be in a movie? This movie proves that's not true, because this was a bad BBC movie of the week. This
Okay.
was a boring movie."
Okay, I didn't see 45 years.
With not much going on and not a lot of. So basically, the premise is 45 years is how long they've been married.
Okay.
She and her husband. But before they got married, her husband, and she knows this, so this is not new stuff. Her husband was dating a woman who died in a tragic mountain climbing accident.
Okay, this sounds Oscar-y all over it.
Yeah. So 45 years later, is it the Austrian or the Swiss, whoever the mountain people are, they say they have found her body, and so they're because she fell down a crevice, they couldn't retrieve it, and they said, oh well, now the thaw has come, and we've actually been able to identify that this is your wife, because back in the 60s, if you were backpacking through Europe as a couple and you weren't married, people wouldn't really put you up.
Okay.
Like, it's like, oh, we're gonna stay. Can we stay at your house?
No, you're living in sin. Bye.
Yeah, no, exactly. People used to do that though. To me, it was like, you're not staying. And I would never like knock on a stranger's door to go, hey, can I kind of stay for the night? Back then they did that, but not so. So this brings up a whole bunch of emotions for her. That 45 years of marriage apparently do not qualify, or she apparently doesn't understand her husband. Now, her husband does have a couple, issues. He obviously has not let go of this woman, which I can certainly understand. If you were dating a woman you almost get married to, and
This all sounds very British.
yeah, it's very British. Oh, it's so British. But if you were going to marry someone and they died, and then you moved on with your life, as soon as that comes back, those memories are going to flood back, because it's not like you dated this girl. She was a crazy girl who threw your clothes out into the lawn and you don't ever see her again. And 45 years later, you're like unfriending her on Facebook. It's not that. I mean, the lack of empathy that I saw from this woman in this movie was crazy, and it was like depicting her. It was so boring and drawn out, and a lot of the reasoning wasn't there for me.
Right.
So how she got nominated, I have no idea, because nobody saw the movie.
No.
And it really wasn't that great.
Okay. Well, onward and upward.
Yeah. So that leaves three. And of the three, I think there's obviously a stand-up, but I think these three are the running. Cate Blanchett, no matter what she does, and deservedly so, because she was good in Carol.
Very good. Yeah.
She didn't do anything non-Cate Blanchett-y.
Right.
And my uncle's a Blanchett, so anytime I see her, they're not related, but I always just feel like she is my first cousin. But Kate Blanchett was fantastic in it.
I loved her a lot in Carol. She any other year, she would win it in a heartbeat. I don't think this year is going to be the year for that.
I think because she's already won it, I definitely.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think she's one of the top 3 people, but I don't think she's in the running.
No, I think that the two that are left, it's going to be against Brie Larson and
Saoirse,
Ronan.
like inertia.
Okay. Well, and but to talk about Kate Blanchett a little more, she has a really difficult role in this one, and it's not because of the sexuality issue. It's because we don't get to get inside Carol's mind that much. It's more from the perspective of Rooney Mara's character. So we're kind of on the outside watching in, but she's really good in it. She has a lot of passion. She loves her child. She even loves her husband in a weird way. It's just that
she got married because in the 50s,
it's
that's what
just
you
that
did.
she doesn't know, and because we're not binary people. We can't define ourselves into certain slots. And she is trapped in a world where she doesn't know what she is, and not know who you are in a world like that is devastating, right? And I think she walks that line really well. She's really great in it. But the 2 performances of the Best Actress of this year that I really, really dug is Inertia. I want to say Inertia Ronan now. Stop it. Saoirse Ronan for Brooklyn.
Who I thought was very good, but I have some issues. and we'll
Really
talk about
good.
that.
Really good. But the best one is Brie Larson in Room.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Saoirse first, because I think we can talk about Brie for quite a bit. Because so Saoirse Ronan I thought was very good in a very mediocre movie.
I think I liked Brooklyn more than you. I'm not sure if it was you or the one who said it, where it said the whole movie could have been.
That was me.
Yeah.
The whole movie would have completely changed at the very end if an old employer she had never talked to her.
Yeah.
If that old woman had never said anything to her, would the movie have changed drastically? Oh, yes. And that means her decision process is not. It would have been different, and it not necessarily because of how she feels. It's because back then it was about traveling. You can't go to Ireland every day or leave Ireland every day, come back to America. If that old lady had not made that, had not done what happens when you go home. Sometimes you go home. Because I don't live anywhere close to where I grew up, and when I go home, you'll walk around town and you'll run into somebody and they'll say something snide,
Yeah.
trying to be polite, or they go back to the old dynamics of when
Yeah,
you lived
exactly.
there,
It's like when you come back to high school.
and you realize, oh yeah, it's people like you is why I left in the first place.
Yeah.
That's what happened to her, but because of all the other stuff she was doing, she was dating a guy. Well, not really dating, but kind of dating a guy, or at least leading him on to make him. At least,
Yeah.
had that lady, had she stayed with this new guy, or she'd gone back to America for her Italian friend, it would have it all hung on that one interaction. Because I think if that interaction had not happened at that moment, it happened a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, she's missed the boat, literally and figuratively. She can't get back to America because she's poor. Her opportunities to go back would not have been limited. She
Right.
probably would have just said, okay.
And see, here's the thing.
So that's not Saoirse's fault.
No. That's a whole other thing. But here's another thing that the reason I kind of have a different perspective on Brooklyn than you are, where again, this is a movie about assigned roles and women who only have 1 or 2 choices. They don't get a lot of choices. And so when she goes back home and immediately she's sucked back into the world that she left, and she's made to believe that she doesn't have a choice. This is just where she's supposed to be. She can't break out on her own. And even in a weird way, even when she was in America, she was sucked into choices that may not have been her own choice. And so the moment in the movie where she says,
well, she's told where to live. She's told she gets that someone gives her a job. Then the priest tells her she's got to go to school.
Yeah, so she doesn't have choices. And so the moment in the moment in the movie where you're talking about, where the lady basically breaks out this big scandal or whatever, and then
blackmails her. Or threatens to blackmail.
Yeah. And so she, I think that's the one true choice she makes in the movie. In a weird way, it would have been more rebellious for her to stay, because then she would be fighting uphill, right? Instead, she's like, "Well, no, I'm going back, because why should I bother with this?" And
oh yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I agreed with her choice. I just,
but I mean, she also didn't love the guy that she was. She came back.
Donald Gleason,
who's
in everything.
Yeah, everything.
I mean, literally, he's in The Revenant. He's in the
Yeah.
He was in Star Wars. I keep seeing him. He was in Black Mirror for one episode. I
Yeah,
didn't
that's
realize.
a good episode too. Yeah, no, he is in everything. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting movie. I the more I talk about it, the more it kind of fades. But it's I think she's really, really good in it, and the performance she gives is great.
I thought she was good in it. I thought everybody else around her was adequate or stereotyped.
Yeah, I mean, the guy she ends up kind of
he
marrying.
was, as an Italian, I was
Yeah.
I was offended by that whole dinner scene.
Oh
'Cause
God, yeah, I was like,
that was
oh,
right
really?
out of a sitcom. That was a
Really?
Lifetime movie.
Yeah.
with a higher quality lead actress and some production value.
You know, I would like to see an Italian dinner with a bunch of Italians, and they're eating like
Just eating food.
tamales.
The-
You're so, it's
don't
like,
care
you know,
what-
we're eating Chinese food tonight. You know, I'm tired of the noodles.
It's not just the eating. It's the yelling, it's the sarcasm, it's all the stuff, which is, it does happen, but it doesn't happen every day.
It's elevated. It's like when you see a movie about Texas and we have cows in our backyard.
Oh yeah, well,
You know?
yeah, and you're racist and you're hateful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they do it like that's how it is. It's every over talks, and it's like no, that happens, but that only happens when you want to talk about. Oh, let's make sure we know at all times.
Yeah.
These people are Italian.
Yeah,
just
and-
like with the Irish.
Life has more nuance than that.
Just like poor Saoirse, her character, you know she's Irish because everything that happens that could go wrong goes wrong. It is like an Irish poem where, oh, you think that's bad? Wait a couple minutes. Oh, it's worse.
Yeah.
This has hit the all-time low. No, it hasn't. Boom. And
Yeah.
then, or some wild stuff out of the blue. Like sometimes you can see problems coming. But then all of a sudden her sister out of the blue.
Yeah.
Because you're not upset enough. You're not
Right,
Irish
right.
enough unless something horrible happens unexpectedly.
I can see all that.
So that leaves Brie Larson, who I think was phenomenal.
It's great.
I think she's head and shoulders above everybody here. And,
Brie-
and it wasn't a huge, I've got to act. I thought she was so natural.
There's Brie Larson is one of the most underrated actresses out there. She did a movie a couple years ago called Short Term 12. Oh my God, it's amazing. She plays a counselor for a home for troubled youth, and she herself is not much older than the kids she's counseling, and
She's not much older than her kid in this movie.
yeah, it's just a tremendously great performance, and it did get some Oscar talk that year when it came out, but it didn't quite make it. But this is her moment, and I think it's an astounding performance. Jacob Tremblay, the kid that plays her son, is also tremendously great, and he probably could have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I mean, it's hard to nominate kids because you don't know how much is acting and how much is them just reacting, right? But he's really great in that. But she is amazing in this film, and totally out of all the nominees here, with the exception of one nominee that didn't quite make the cut, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But she's great. I like how one of my favorite scene in the movie is her getting mad at her mother, who's just trying to help her out, but she has all this emotion, and she doesn't know where to put it, so she basically throws it at her mom, because where else are you going to put it? She doesn't have any place to put it. She can't get mad at her kid. She can't get mad at her situation. I mean, she can be angry at her situation, but there's no person to
There's no release.
there's no release. And so her mom's just trying to help her out, and she just goes off on her. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. She's tremendous. It's a great movie, and it's deserving to be here. I think she should win this award. I think she's the one I'm rooting for to win this award out of these nominees.
I want her to win, and I think she is going to win.
It's a hard movie to watch too. It's rough. I mean, nothing's explicit, which is great.
No,
but
it's
because it's not explicit in a weird way, it makes it worse.
Yes,
your
because you're
imagination-
expecting it. No,
Yeah.
you go to a movie,
Uh-huh.
and the movie, for those of you who don't know, the room is basically she is been abducted. Brie Larson has been abducted. I guess she must have got abducted when she was like 17,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not uncommon from the Cleveland, Ohio incident where the guy had two women locked in his house for
Right. It's
years.
obviously inspired by that.
Yeah. So the room is where he keeps her, and he has a child with her, and so she and the child are trapped in the room, and it's one of those things where, I kind of lost my train of thought right there because I was thinking about it, going. The problem is, you think, because we watch movies about this, so there is rape in the movie.
Uh-huh.
There is not incest, but there is children born from rape.
Yeah.
So we're expecting, because that's what they do in Hollywood, is really make it real,
Yeah.
that we're going to be privy to all that.
It's going to be shoved in your face.
And I thought the whole movie was like that.
Yeah.
I thought the whole movie was going to be like that until about halfway through. And then I looked at my watch. I'm going, wait a minute. this movie's only been on for an hour, and they're at the end.
Yeah.
I thought, and then it's about dealing with it.
Yeah,
after they get out.
not just in the room, but how to live out of it. You know,
But
how to-
nothing's explicit except the language.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's why I got an R. Is because they use the F word a couple
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
But
I
there's-
mean, well, it's a subject matter. It's really tough.
well, you could have done it PG if you had. I mean, there's nothing visual.
The way people rate movies now, subject matter does sort of come into play a little bit. So I think I don't
I think
know.
this would have been a PG-13 considering
Yeah.
what's out there because there's not a lot. The violence is minimal, if
Yeah,
any.
yeah.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, very much. And Jacob Tremblay plays a kid it's not that likable at first.
Well, he's never been outside. He doesn't know the
doesn't
world.
know.
He doesn't even believe the world exists.
Yeah, he thinks it's just a light in the ceiling. That's all he gets. And when not to spoil, they do get out of the room, and when he gets out of the room, it's such an overwhelming sensation. He can't handle just the idea that there isn't a ceiling above him, and he just locks up. You know.
Well, that's what threw me is that they got out of the
Yeah.
room early.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a movie about them living in the room. It's
Right.
about that. That's the setup to how do they get? What happens when they get out?
Right.
How do they readjust? How do they integrate back into society? How does someone who's been I mean, she didn't really have Stockholm syndrome, so that was good.
No.
because she was constantly trying to get
No,
out.
she's always trying to leave.
Or at least thinking about it.
Yeah.
So, but it was more of how do you get back into society, and then you have to how do you teach a 5 or 6 year old kid about society
Yeah.
because he had only seen it through TV. Because she didn't want him to hope and dream and be crushed, told him it was fake.
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden, oh, that's real. So everything your mother has said, the only person you know.
It's a trip.
It is a trip,
It's
and
a
I
trip.
think she deserves it. So
Yep.
let's move on to I believe is the weakest category in a long time.
Okay. Well, real quick.
Oh, you wanted to talk about
Charlize Theron, Mad Max Fury Road, should have been nominated. If she was nominated, I would have voted for her to win.
Why do you think she wasn't? Because I think I agree with
They
you 100%.
just ran out of room.
No, no,
I think they ran out. Well, you know what?
Really?
You have Jennifer Lawrence and Charlotte Rampling, who
You've
just,
got plenty of room.
Yeah, they should have not been again, it's a science fiction thing. It's a movie that's it's not. This is a genre that's not judged for the performances, even though science fiction performances are often the most actory performances because you've got to you're our gateway to that world. You have to make us believe it, and because Charlize Theron is just so incredibly great, she's an action heroine icon for the ages. She's up there with Ripley in Aliens. Okay. She's just one of those great, she's Katniss Everdeen, these great women performances of science fiction. And she's like Jane Fonda and Barbarella, that might be a stretch, but she's just one of those iconic performances that should have been nominated, and people will be kicking themselves 10 years down the road saying, why didn't we nominate this person? Because she's just amazing in this movie. And then she is the star of the film. It really is her film, even though it's a Mad Max movie. It's her movie, and she's just amazing. She should have been nominated, and I'm done with that.
Well, like I said, now we'll move on to what I can think is the weakest of all of the categories that we're going to talk about today is Best Actor. And there is one movie I haven't seen, so we'll talk about it. It's Bryan Cranston in Trumbo, Matt Damon, The Martian, Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, Michael Fassbender and Steve Jobs, and Eddie Redmayne in The Danish Girl. And I did not see Trumbo with Bryan Cranston.
And I didn't see The Danish Girl, so Trumbo isn't a very good movie.
That's what I hear. I heard it.
It suffers from what I call the walk hard syndrome. You see a movie like Walk Hard, right? It's a spoof of biopics, and every time somebody comes on the stage that's a historical figure, Dewey Cox, John C. Reilly would say, "Oh, hey, Elvis Presley, it's nice to meet you, John Lennon. It's nice to see you, Paul McCartney." And it's like they're bringing all these moments in. It's like, well, you're supposed to recognize. Okay, ooh, that's John Wayne. Ooh, that's
Marilyn Monroe. Or I don't know who's in the movie.
Yeah, but these famous people. I can't remember. Hedda Hopper. She would do the gossip columns, and she's played by Helen Mirren, who is actually really good in it. But it's one of those movies. Like, well, we have to touch A to B to C D to E.
So how's Cranston in it? Because I
He's
can't
good.
imagine. Cranston's not a bad actor at all.
He's good in it, and actually, I kind of don't. In a way, I don't have a problem with this nomination because he does the really good job of what he's given it. At the same time, I have a problem with this nomination because the movie just isn't good.
Yeah.
It's just not a good movie. But he's really good in it. He's not as good as some of the other performances on this list.
Well, then I will talk about The Danish Girl.
Okay.
Because you did not see that. And again, we're talking about it's a more of a social justice movie as Eddie Redmayne it becomes The Danish Girl. It starts off as a lark. Eddie Redmayne is an odd-looking guy in the first place. Then when you dress up like a woman, he is a very attractive lady. I'm not kidding. I mean, had you not known Eddie Redmayne in the first place, it could have. You would have gone, that is a very handsome woman. Because you would have gone, oh, well, she's not something I think is a classically attractive, but that looks like a nice looking lady to some degree. So he's an artist, and one of the things he hates going to these events. His wife's trying to be an artist, and he's trying to help her, but she doesn't want the help because she wants to do it on her own. And so she has to go to this event, and he doesn't want to go to the events because he's gone to them before and they get boring.
Right.
So, well, now we'll start indulging. So basically what they say is the one time, and this is crazy because it's obviously more involved than this. I mean, to make decisions that he made, you have to be more involved than just the one time you try to dress on
And
when
it
your
just
wife
changed your total life, and it had been there all along, really.
No, I mean, I think that was my wife didn't freak out about it. In fact, she wants me to put the dress on to help her do this painting. Okay. Then all of a sudden it becomes more playful. Then it's like, let's try to see if I'm going to show you how to walk and his wife goes like, I'll show you how to walk and how to act and how to talk and we'll get you all dressed up and we'll go to this event and you'll go as this woman, as a cousin. And so that happens. And then all of a sudden at the event, he meets another gentleman there. I believe Q from the gentleman who plays Q in the new James Bond movies.
John Delancey?
Yeah.
No.
In the new John Bond. He's a young guy.
I was thinking Q from Star Trek. No, Ben Whishaw.
I think it's Ben. And all of a sudden, there's connection there, and I think, and Ben he sees, this is a man, but he's gay, and and they do the thing, and they start talking, and it gets more involved, and I think Eddie Redmayne's character is ready for, and then it moves down the road to the point where he is actually getting treatments, and he's actually going to become this transgendered person, become a woman. I thought Eddie Redmayne did a good job. I think he's the hot Oscar guy this year. I mean, I think he got nominated because of the content, not necessarily for the acting.
And he's also a winner because he won last year for
right.
the
And again, I think he does a good job. I think he does a really good job. But compared to, I didn't think it was over the top. I think it's like when you're sick, you have an illness, not that being transgender is an illness, but if you have something different about you, that's going to make you a big deal when you get nominated because you had to do something that you're not.
Okay, well, yeah.
So to play sick, to play, like in Tropic Thunder said, when you go full,
Yeah, R word.
Yeah. So if you have this, if there's something different that's not mainstream, you're going to get a lot more credit, even if you didn't do it.
So you'd think it's more of an issue of the issue. It's an issue movie and not his performance.
It's definitely an issue movie.
Yeah.
And I think it's a historical issue movie. I think it's showing that what we talk about now has actually been going on for quite a long time. And here's one of the first people that did it, and some of the things that they went through.
Okay.
So that leaves us with Matt Damon, who I think is not going to win it, but I think actually deserves
he
it.
Might be the best one on here.
I think so. That's what I'm gonna say. I think he had to do more.
This is kind of the thing where we were talking about last year, where a movie that we both loved, Whiplash, even though it's kind of under the radar for a lot of the award stuff, we felt like it was the best one, right? Or at least the most enjoyable one. Matt Damon gives a performance here that's hard as hell to do. He's talking to a camera half the time.
More than half the time.
Yeah, really.
99% of the time until the very end.
Yes, he's doing his own performance. He's not talking to anybody.
And he's doing it, if we want to get technical, and he's doing it, there are some practical effects, but he's doing it with green screen.
Yeah.
So a lot of the environments that he's looking at are not there.
Right.
He's really, and he does it where he makes it natural.
Yeah, and it's a character that isn't pessimistic about his place. I mean, he doesn't know if he's going to get off of Mars or not, but he refuses to quit. I mean, he has moments. There's the one moment where he hears the first human voice he's heard in 3 years, right? And the ship is coming over, and I mean, hopefully you've seen The Martian by now. It's a lot of people have seen it, but when he hears that first human voice, and you just see his face go, "Oh my!" it just wrecks you. It's like. And he doesn't want to have that emotion. He wants to be professional. He wants to. I'm not there yet. I have to go through this, but he can't help it because it's the first voice he's heard in 3 years, and it's just amazing. Damon is amazing in this movie, and he's funny.
And I think he's natural because I think and there is no Oscar moment.
No, there isn't. They fight the Oscar moment. They could have been. There totally could have been. There are lots of moments they could have had that Oscar thing, but he fights it, and Ridley Scott as the director fights it. It's like, no, that's
and Ridley
not.
Scott has known to be indulge himself in
He
those
can
Oscar
a
moments.
little bit, but this one doesn't have that.
No, this one's fantastic.
And so when you get the whole thing and you see the whole performance at the end of the film, you really feel like you've gone on a journey with this person. Damon's amazing in this movie. It's definitely in this top 3 best performances of all time, maybe number 1. I think he's incredible in Good Will Hunting too. But it's a star-making performance. It's the kind of performance that Clark Gable did, even though it's not really a romantic kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's one of those actor-anchored performances that they used to have.
It's Tom Hanks in Castaway in space.
Yeah.
And not to say that's the plot, but I mean, Tom Hanks was so fantastic in that movie because all he had was a volleyball.
Yeah.
And Damon doesn't even have that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the movie, he's talking to himself, doing video blogging, basically.
Yeah. And the fact that his character keeps his sense of humor, he has his dark moments, but I just loved him in The Martian. It's hard. It's really difficult to articulate as well as I'd like. Why? Because he's so watchable. You can't take your eyes off him, and you want to befriend him. As an audience, you kind of want to reach out there and say, "Damn it, I want to help you out." It's great.
Michael Fassbender and Steve Jobs, I thought, as an act, because it's well known, I am not a fan of the person Steve Jobs.
No, I'm not really either.
No, there's some people who idolize him and put him on pedestals because he created, and I'm not going to take his accomplishments away. I just don't think as a person he's someone I would ever want to meet.
I could take his accomplishments away quite a bit, actually.
Well, if you think about it, you say that, but it's so a part of everybody's life right now that it's quite an accomplishment.
He's one of the greatest designers who ever lived. He's not a programmer. He couldn't write a computer program to save his life, but he could sell this thing to people to make it seem like the computers are friendly. We can move on to the future together, and it's not going to be hard. It's not. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand what we're doing.
But he wasn't like that great of a guy.
No,
my point is a human being. I'm not going to go too far into how he is as a human being because I don't know him. But from all I can tell, he's not someone I would want to have. Would you go back in time and have dinner with Steve Jobs? Hell no.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: it's an Aaron Sorkin script, and if you know Aaron Sorkin, it's walk and talk. The dialogue itself is really hard.
There's so much walking and talking in this movie that he'd be walking and talking, and then
the movie is literally walk and talk the movie because
but they don't even pause to set the scene up. He's walking and talking, and he immediately runs into another person that he has another 20-minute walk and talk with.
Yeah,
like it was the second unveiling. He's at that performance house. He's talking to Kate Winslet, and then he comes around the corner, and there's Jeff Daniels sitting in a chair, which starts another 20-minute conversation, which then leads to another 20-minute conversation with someone else.
The thing is, and the way we're kind of putting it right now kind of make it sounds boring, but it's absolutely not boring. It's really fascinating to watch, especially these characters interact with this utter asshole.
Which I appreciate. I don't think they tempered him down.
They didn't temper him down at all.
In fact, someone say they may have amped up his assholiness.
They may have. But Fassbender's firecracker in this movie. He's given and taken as well as anybody could give.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't like Steve Jobs, and I didn't like Michael Fassbender, but I loved his performance.
Yeah.
So he didn't make me go, oh, I understand and empathize and humanize Steve Jobs.
No, and that's what's great about it. It's not asking you to empathize with him. It's like, this is him. You may not like him as a person, but at the same time, you can understand this is why this stuff happened. We would never have gotten to these places. We would never have had the iMac, iPhone, iPod. We would never have gotten all these things that did move us along as a society for better or ill if it weren't for him. And this is how it happened because he's a guy who didn't want to integrate into technology. He didn't want people to go into digging in his stuff and upgrading it. This is what we're selling. This is what you're going to use. And, he had a tyrannical aspect about him. I mean, it's a movie that does not judge, but at the same time, it kind of does. It lets you do the judging.
Oh, yeah.
One
of my best assets. I can judge like nobody's business.
No, he's terrific in it. I
thought he was fantastic in it.
In a weird way, the reason I prefer Damon's performance over Fassbender's is mostly because Steve Jobs is an asshole, and the guy in The Martian is not an asshole.
Well, Let's move on to our last person, with Leonardo DiCaprio, who, again, so the character, not an
Hey,
asshole.
he deserves this Oscar. Just ask him.
Yeah, well, and ask anybody.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of the Revenant movie or Leo in this movie. Basically, he grunted and snot bubbled his way through this movie. And yes, he was out there doing it. I can totally appreciate that. That's not acting, that's being.
Yeah.
So it's almost like when Laurence Olivier told Dustin Hoffman, how do you prepare? It's acting, man. You don't have to
pretend.
Yeah,
It's
you
pretend.
You don't have to spend 4 nights awake to act like you've been up for 4 nights.
Yeah.
And Leo, I think that's. I mean, I'll give him credit for putting himself in that position, but it's like Jackass the movie with some bona fides.
You know what? I'm going when he wins the award, because he's probably going to win. When he wins the award, I'm going to squint and I'm going to say, "Hey, this is for Wolf of Wall Street."
I mean,
'Cause
I think this
yeah.
is also going to be a Lifetime Achievement Award situation because
Sort of.
he was great in the Great Gatsby. I thought he was fantastic in that. From his very first time we saw him in Gilbert Grape, I thought he was good. He is not a bad actor at all.
No, he's a tremendously great
this
actor.
is probably his weakest performance because he's not really acting.
Yeah. It's not. This is you're okay. Roll around the mud and on a CGI bear.
He remembered his lines. That's what it is. It's here, do this actual stuff. And while you're doing it, don't forget to say these things.
Yeah, because the whole time this Oscar campaign has been talking about how hard The Revenant was to make. We only shot in natural light. We went outside. We ate bison. All that's great, but it's not acting. You're reacting, and there's nothing. Okay, I'm more impressed with a performance that like DiCaprio gave in Wolf of Wall Street, where he's playing this total, utter, irredeemable jerk, and but he plays it so well that you almost root for him, it's because of the weird way of the empathy that you strike with DiCaprio. He doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue. It's a lot of grunting and heavy breathing, moving from point A to point B. Oh, maybe I get to eat between point A and point B. Oh, wait, there's a group of Indians over there. I can meet with them. I'm trying to get revenge for my son. And then, the best, here's the thing about The Revenant that because it's been nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, a lot of things. The Revenant is a pulp film. It's pulp. It's a revenge story. It's glossied up to the tits. Okay, it's got.
Hey, it took us an hour and 10 minutes to get the explicit tag on this. thing.
It's glossied up forever. It's got some incredibly brilliant cinematography. It's the direction is interesting, but at the end, it's about a guy who wants to kill another guy for killing his kid, and there are a billion revenge movies out there like that. Okay, yeah. Taken. It's practically Taken in the wilderness. It's what it is. I don't like that they don't embrace that. If they embrace that, maybe I could respect it more. But they're trying to make it as this big, Oscar-y important film. It's not an important movie.
No,
it's a movie about revenge. It's a Western, and I've seen tons of Westerns that I love and I adore them.
It's a Western before we went out west.
Yeah, and it's just kind of one of those movies where if they hadn't tried to sell it as this great cinematic achievement. And yes, it looks amazing, okay? And yes, there are great performances. There are really riveting moments. The action is shot well. But it's a revenge story, dude. And that's all it is. And I wish that they would embrace that. If they did, I would respect it more. But because they're trying to make it this big, important film, which it isn't, it kind of ticks me off a little bit, especially when you have other movies that we'll get to which embrace what they are, okay?
So we both think Leo's going to win.
He's going to win.
Who do you want to win?
It's a tough call, but I think I might go with Matt Damon.
So you want Matt Damon?
I think I might go with Matt Damon. I think Michael Fassbender is really great in that movie. We'll see more great performances from him in the future, as will we see more great performances from Matt Damon. But I think Matt Damon just had a little harder job.
Okay. You almost won me on that one because I listened to it. I was like, oh yeah, I forget how great Matt Damon was in The Martian, even though I love The Martian. But I still want. I think I want Fassbender to grab that because I think he did a really good job of portraying a person that is not very likable, and yet still, still showing that there, the reasoning behind it without losing.
You can still sort of empathize with Steve Jobs
to some degree. I mean, you don't really go, oh, that's I certainly.
You can
understand.
see an arc in the film where he kind of he warms up to his daughter. He kind of becomes a better person towards the end. And one of the things I appreciate about that Steve Jobs that I will say, this is the great thing about it, is that it doesn't become a disease of the week movie.
No.
It could have totally done that.
Oh no, they stopped before then.
They stopped before that. So you're judging him as a man and not judging him by his illness.
Well-
which that's good. That's really good.
Well, since Best Director, everyone in Best Director is also nominated for Best Picture, we're going to combine those two. We're going to talk about the Best Directors first, and then we'll
Okay.
just tack on the other movies at the end of our conversation of that.
Okay.
That way we don't have to repeat ourselves, because I think when you talk Best Director and Best Picture, the reasons for it are going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because no one makes a Best Picture more than the director.
Right.
So we'll start with Adam McKay, Shock, from the director of Anchorman, The
See,
Big
the-
Short,
yeah.
which is, I think this is one of the best nominations on merit.
Yeah, it's a great movie. The Big Short's a great movie. And here's the thing about Adam McKay. Adam McKay has always been a political director. Always. Even with Anchorman. You watch a movie like Anchorman and you think, oh, it's hilarious, it's absurd, it's weird. But it's also a movie about how, man, the press is just not doing their job. They're just not doing their job. They haven't done their job for a long time. And the reason they haven't been doing their job is because we want to be comforted. We want to see panda bears having children or squirrels on water skis, because the real news is not something that comes into effect in this film. And it's done in such a humorous way that you almost don't see the message, but it has one. You know, a movie like Talladega Nights, which is about the American dream and how ridiculous it could get, okay? Ridiculous it could get. And when you have everything you want, really, what does that mean? To have Domino's and Taco Bell every night? That's not...
Thank you, baby Jesus.
You know...
8 pound, 7 ounce baby Jesus.
You know, and then you have a movie like Step Brothers, which on the surface seems like a really strange family comedy, but it's also a movie about how we as Americans don't grow up anymore. You know, it's a movie about how we don't grow up anymore and how we willingly infantize ourselves, because growing up is hard. We can't take things seriously. We don't. Why should we? And if we have parents that enable us to be children all the time, then we'll never grow up. It has a lot going on. You know, the Big Short is no different.
And,
it's just more upfront about it.
And he wants this to be a message movie. I mean, he's talked about, he made this movie so people would talk about it, not because he thought it would be a nice little way to present it. He's like, I want this to be a catalyst for change, not necessarily a reflection of or a document that shows what happened, but hey, we still need to fix some things.
There's things that we need to do. This is how it happened. And it's done, sometimes it feels forced. Sometimes it's done in a way where it's like, this is a lot of information you're just not going to get. And they say it in the film, you're not going to get what I'm telling you.
And I
but
thought-
you need to know this is how sort of it happened. And we don't even really understand it.
I thought sometimes it was effective and sometimes ineffective the way they explain stuff. Did we need to see Margot Robbie in a bathtub?
Yes.
Well, do you remember what she said? Not really.
A little bit about credit to false swaps,
yeah.
but you know.
I do remember, but I didn't think that one worked. But I do think the Selena Gomez at the blackjack table was much more
Yeah.
effective because A, we're not sexualizing her in any way.
Yeah.
You know, we're not being distracted because she's in bubbles and drinking champagne. They're actually doing the thing.
Yeah. But
so-
at the same time, it's Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
but it's no. And I think it's
She's
really
in that whiskey foxtrot tango with Tina Fey.
Oh, okay.
I would much rather go out with Tina
Well,
Fey. I think
kinda-
Tina Fey is much more attractive. Than
I dig Margot Robbie mostly because of the performance she did in Wolf of Wall Street, but also because she looks like she's going to be a good Harley Quinn.
and she's not unattractive. I'm not
Yeah,
saying that, but
it's
I just thought that he had the fact that he put those
and it's
in there-
almost too on the nose. You know, it's like, look, you're not going to get this, so we're just going to throw this at you, and hopefully you'll get it. Hopefully you won't, but I have to explain it to you.
But it was
And
a good choice. It was a risk. It was
Yeah.
a big risk, but I'm glad they took that risk.
Yeah.
because it did help the movie.
And it's a movie about, there are no good guys in this movie. You can
no.
sort of empathize with Steve Carell a little bit. He's furious and angry, but he took the money.
Yeah,
He
you're
took
rooting
the
on people
money.
too.
They all took the money.
The winners in this movie is because the world's finances collapse. So you're rooting for people, hoping that the world's economy collapses, which is a tough thing, but it's effective. They did it in a way that
They show a scene in Vegas where all the hobnobs are there in the casino talking. They're deciding, the masters of the universe deciding the fate of the world, and the next shot you see homeless people living under a bridge, and that's the exact correlation you should be making. It's a great film. And I think Adam McKay as a director is really coming to his own. My worry for Adam McKay is that I don't want him to go back to. I mean, I want him to kind of go back to comedy, but in an interesting way, where he is still telling funny stories and fascinating and interesting. I'm not really worried about him as a director. I think he's going to do great. That's why he's probably not going to win this.
Oh no, he's not going to win this.
He's probably
I can
not
tell you
gonna,
right now he's
yeah,
not gonna
he's
win
not going to, even though he's got a little buzz, a little momentum from other places, but it's not his to win this time.
No.
But the fact that he's there is amazing. The fact that
No,
the director of Anchorman is nominated for an Oscar, and Anchorman is like great comedy classics of all time. Step Brothers is as well.
Well, that's why I like this one, because this is a true meritocracy award for him.
I agree.
I
mean,
believe he
I
did a
can't
great
really
job.
see, I'm not an Oscar person. Mel Brooks ever been nominated for best director for
I know
anything?
not for director. He's won for script. He
Yeah,
won for
but
the producers.
not for. I mean, but,
I don't
you know,
believe so.
And you have a movie like Blazing Saddles, which does exactly what some of these other movies are doing.
Yeah.
It's a satire. I think it's great that he's nominated.
Then goes one of our favorite movies of the year.
My
George Miller.
favorite movie of the year.
George
yeah.
Miller, Mad Max Fury Road. This is amazing that this is a science fiction movie. I think this is one of those movies that they just couldn't deny.
They can't, because it's just a fantastic, amazing film. We're talking about Mad Max Fury Road like we talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark. We'll be talking about it like we talk about Star Wars. It is that good a science fiction film. And the Academy has this thing of not granting these films the importance that they deserve. Mad Max Fury Road is the best film of the year, hands down. There is no film that made me feel the way this movie did, that excited me the way this movie did, that had so much to say in the way it said it like this film did. It's a movie about exploding cars in the future. It's also a movie about feminism and women's roles in society and how they can break out and how hard it is to break out. It's about how men shouldn't be here to force women into roles, but we should be here helping them find the roles they want to find. It's a tremendously great film, and it's exciting, and you watch it and you're just like, oh, I can't believe they did that, how they do that stunt. It's amazing. You know what's funny? I was watching a documentary on Inside Llewyn Davis, and but the Coen brothers directed that film, and they were talking about how Guillermo del Toro asked him, well, who influenced you on Raising Arizona? And he said, oddly enough, The Road Warrior by George Miller. So we got a lot of that in film from George Miller. George Miller's been around in Hollywood forever. He's made...
I was going to say, he's 81?
Yeah. I think 80 or 81.
So he made this movie when he was 78, 79.
Yeah,
I mean,
it took him about 3 years to finish this film. Warner Brothers had no idea what they had when they released it. They thought this was going to be a flop. And then it comes out and it just kicks the door down. My summer was over after this movie came out.
Which was sad because it came out in May.
It came in May. And nothing this summer came close. Nothing.
But it was a great way to start the summer, though.
Yeah.
Because you knew that even if you didn't like something, you could go back and see Mad Max. You didn't have.
Yeah,
it wasn't
Mad
like
Max is a movie that rewards repeat viewings like you won't believe. I've seen it. It has to be like 8 times now.
My wife and I. My wife.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell it's a good movie. Well, at least you can tell it's a really fun, good movie if my wife wants to go see it in the theater more than once. And I think we saw this 3 times in the theater because we would bring people. I mean, we did that with Avatar because Avatar in 3D, regardless of the story, and when it came out, it was something to behold, to go witness. Because 3D has been around and it's crap. But Avatar did it right, and it was the first one, and it was amazing. She did it with Guardians of the Galaxy. We saw that and immediately took anybody like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Anybody who says, "Hey, I haven't seen it yet. Will you
Let's go."
Yes.
Yeah.
So
This
we've
is like-
seen that 4 times.
You know, the best correlation I can make for Mad Max Fury Road and why it should be Best Picture and why it should be Best Director. In 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark lost to Chariots of Fire. Which one do you watch more? Which one do you watch more?
Which one do you even think about besides the music? I was going to say besides the music. What do you remember from Chariots of Fire? And I would say the Raiders of the Lost theme is much more iconic.
Annie Hall beat Star Wars in 1977, and I love Annie Hall. And in fact, in a weird way, I think it probably deserved to win that year. But man, what movie do we talk about more? Okay, there are films. Jaws did not win Best Picture in 1975. And I'm not trying to stay on a Spielberg bend here, but I'm just saying there are films that are so iconic that change everything because some kid is going to sit and see Fury Road and say, I want to do that. That of all the movies that are made this year, including The Revenant, all the films that are made this year, none of them have that effect as Fury Road.
I was going to say the next movie is The Revenant, which I think is going to be, of all of these, is going to be the most forgettable.
I think so. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of Inarritu as a director. I didn't like Birdman. Okay, I didn't like Birdman at all. I thought it was pretentious and over the top. I don't like to use the word pretentious. Birdman is pretentious. The Revenant isn't pretentious.
No,
It's not. But I'll put it this way: The Revenant as a movie, as a revenge movie, is quite good. The marketing campaign's pretentious as hell. But
He has no control over that.
yeah,
So yeah.
I the affectation of we only shot in natural light. It was such a hard shoot. Okay, great, but just direct it, man. Just make the film.
Well, I have no problem.
I'm glad it turned out the way it did. It is a beautiful film.
I have no problem with the direct. When
He should probably be nominated for best director. I don't think he should win.
No,
but,
when a
you know.
director says, "Well, we're going to do it in natural lighting," it's almost like on television. It's a show I don't watch. It's called Undateable. And they decided, well, this year we're going to do all the shows live. We're doing a sitcom on television live every Friday. Do they need to? No. But what it does is it's you're stuck in a box anyways. It's a movie. You've got certain things. What can we do to not necessarily think outside the box, but because we're forced in this box, what can we do in the box that's going to be unique and different and help us tell the story?
Yeah.
And I think the natural lighting, like again, I'm biased because I'm a photographer. The natural lighting helped make the story because it made you feel like you were actually there because it wasn't clear as day all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And when the light shone, it was beautiful. Oh, and everything's in channel.
Yeah,
lock.
no, look, see, it's the director's job to, for me personally, it's the director's job for me to fall into the film. I've always said this before. The movie screen isn't a window, it's a door. You go in, you're in the film, you're part of it. All this other extraneous stuff takes me out, okay? If I have to fall into your movie, I have to become into it. I have to become a part of it. And that's the way I view film. This is the way I've always done it. I will say this. There's a film that Inarritu did called Amores Perros, which is still my favorite film of his. It's a great movie. This one is like a second film of his that I like The Revenant a lot. I like it a lot. I don't love it, but I do like it. But it's just not all this other stuff. I would respect the film more if they just said what they made. A revenge western.
A classy Quentin Tarantino movie.
Well, Tarantino movies
No, I mean,
really like this, but
well,
yeah.
I mean, actually, Quentin Tarantino's are very much like this if you actually put dialogue in it. Because
Yeah, really, yeah.
yeah.
That's like the anti-Hateful Eight. There's no...
yeah, no,
no-
it's they're going down the same path, except one is where there's people you can hear them talking in the woods. That's Quentin Tarantino's movie. Is the people you hear in the woods
Let me
talking.
tell you something about The Revenant. This movie almost made me fall asleep in the first few minutes because it's basically you have one of those things. I need one of those sound things to fall asleep, so you have trickling water. And so you have that opening sequence in the forest with the water. It's 5 minutes long, and all you hear is the water rushing, and it's like, oh, wow, this is peaceful. And you're knocked out. You're knocked out.
Well, but that's not the only time that happens. There are long stretches of unnecessarily long because he's taking beauty shots.
Yeah.
Because yes, we have natural light where we spent. It's freezing out here. We spent every day in cloudy and snow, so we couldn't shoot. And so the one day we did get to shoot, I'm going to use every piece of that footage. And that's what it felt like.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a
It
slog.
could have totally lost about 45 minutes.
Oh.
And it would have been incredibly effective.
Which is a sad thing to say about any movie that can lose 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Because that means it's not very well.
At the end of the day, it's still a good film. I just think it
could have been a lot
bloated
better.
and overhyped, and it's just...
So here's a movie that's not bloated at all. I think it's a streamlined,
Very.
and it's not been overhyped because I didn't really hear anything much about it until I went to go see it. Lenny Abramson, The Room, which I thought was the way they use music in the first half of that movie is fantastic because it's playful and it's
You're not quite sure how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah, because-
and then you realize the weight of it.
because the first half hour is really
Yeah.
just getting adjusted to being in the
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
What's life like in the room? And it's not really that bad. I mean, they've got restrictions.
You
don't know if it's a
You don't know.
post-apocalyptic
Yeah,
world.
you don't know what's going on. It's in a weird way. It plays like a science fiction film in those first few minutes, and then as we get more information, we understand what's happening, and then the situation becomes overwhelming, and it becomes overwhelming to us as an audience because we want to get out of that room just as badly as they do. It's a really interesting dichotomy that's done as an audience member watching the movie, and as somebody who's has such empathy that you feel like you're in there. You're ready to get out. You're with them. You want to leave, and so the room becomes really hard to watch. Even though there's nothing really explicit about it, it's just really hard to watch.
In that first half, I thought
Yeah.
it was impressive because you are in a room. So how do you make one location that's tiny? So it's not even like you're in one big cabin like the Hateful Eight.
It's a shed in the back of somebody's
It's a
backyard.
small room, and yet you can feel the crampness. That's definitely part of it, but it's not boring because
No,
he
because
found
the
ways of shooting
performances-
it. Well, he also found ways of
Yeah.
shooting it and how they interacted with each other and what they were doing. So it wasn't this, it could have been a slog. That first half could have been a slog.
Yeah, and it's to the credit of Brie Larson and Jacob Tremblay, who just give such graceful performances, and you could see the weariness on Brie Larson's face, right? And how you can, there's so much emotion to how she loves her son at the same time resents the hell out of him. How her son, he's never going to make that connection because he's not outside, doesn't know. He can explain it to them all day, but he's never going to know. And the frustration that must be as a mother, as a parent, to know that. It's like, I'm just never going to make this right for you. We have to get out. You're never going to understand.
I think actually the fact that she had a kid is what saved their life because I don't know if she would have been. I mean, we hear about Stockholm syndrome all the time.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know
would've
how
just-
she would have been if it.
the only saving grace she had was that child, because the only thing that kept her. Otherwise, she would have escaped into herself. She would never have been able to. She would just been victimized for the rest of her life in there. And then once that child was born, it's like, I have this goal. I have to focus on this goal, and it gave her purpose. And it's an incredible movie. He's not going to win Best Director because this is his first film, I believe. I think it's his first film.
If it's not, it's probably his first film that people have seen. Well, that leads to.
He's great. He's a great director.
Oh, it's a fantastic
great
movie.
directing that he did.
I don't
but
think he's going to win either.
No.
That leads to Tom McCarthy with Spotlight, which I believe is the most traditional Oscar movie.
It probably is, but it's also
and it's not. I don't think it's.
that's not said as a bad thing. It's
Oh, no,
actually
no.
it may be the most traditionally Oscar-y kind of movie, but it's so well done.
It's well written. It's
And
well
it's,
directed because I think he did a good job of streamlining as best he could. This is
Yeah.
a huge endeavor.
A lot of information is being given to us, like The Big Short. It's a lot of information, and it's giving to us in an entertaining manner. The thing is, we start to really empathize with the performances. Michael Keaton is so good in this, and it's a shame. I mean, in a weird way, it's a shame that the movie is such an ensemble piece because nobody can stand out over anybody else, and so you can't really nominate somebody for Best Actor for this film. You can do supporting all day. You could do like 5 or 6 performances supporting, but actor you can't have. But Michael Keaton is a great performance. I love how his character is. He knows the facts that are in front of him. He understands what's happening. The molestation is happening. The Catholic Church covered it up. But he can't quite bring himself to commit to that idea because he's lived there all his life.
Yeah, he grew up Catholic. He went to a Catholic high
know.
school. They find out one of the people on the list that they've accumulated is someone he went to the school he went to, which is a fairly influential school because he
Yeah.
goes to talk to the school about it.
Yeah.
And they bring in a bunch of people that are prominent figures in the community to talk about. He thought he was going in to talk to the dean of the school,
Yeah.
and instead
All
they've
these
got-
people show up and it's like, oh, okay, this is a big deal.
Yeah, this is a big deal.
Yeah, and but he can't quite commit his own. He knows this is a story, and he has no problem. He's not going to hold the story back in any way. He wants to get all the evidence, but at the same time, he can't quite commit to that this actually really happened until this last scene when he gets the list of when he gets the names from his
When
friend.
Jamie Sheridan,
Yeah,
finally. Who I love Jamie Sheridan and everything.
he's really good in this.
Unfortunately, he's had some medical issues, and his career hasn't taken off like it should. But I always thought Jamie Sheridan should have been a lot more.
He is good Randall Flagg.
I know. I thought he should have
Yeah.
been a lot more famous and used than he has been.
Yeah. No, Spotlight is a tremendously great film. It feels like the most traditional film of the nominees, but
I
it's
thought-
not in a bad way. It's
Well,
just
that's
really
why
good.
I was going to say I think McCarthy did a good job of keeping in the plot moving because it could have got bogged down, especially in a lot of the weird, the emotional stuff that
You know what?
would be awkward and feel weird.
McCarthy deserves to be here for one reason alone, really. He came off a movie like The Cobbler, an Adam Sandler movie, which is like really one of the worst movies ever made to this.
He
That's
did The Cobbler?
He did The Cobbler.
That was like straight to video, wasn't it?
yeah, practically. I may have played a few.
I see it on Netflix. That's the only way I know that.
And
Good for Tom McCarthy. I did not know that.
yeah.
Oh, if there was comeback player of the year,
That's comeback player of the
that
year.
is
That's definitely
that is good for him. I didn't even know that. But so of the best directors, I think I know which one you want.
Oh yeah,
George Miller.
Yeah, easily.
So, and I would like George Miller as well. I thought he did the best job. Who do you think is actually going to win it?
It may be closer than people think. I think Inarritu won the DGA, but it might be closer than people think. George Miller's got a lot of people who like him.
Don't forget, he also did Babe, Pig in the City. So
Yeah.
it's not like he is this science fiction guy that.
Well, he did Happy Feet.
Yeah, he's got a lot of people who know him outside of the science fiction genre.
Yeah.
So
and he's been around forever, and a lot of people love him. It's gonna be a tough call for me. I would like to say George Miller's gonna. Excuse me. I would like to say George Miller's gonna win it because I just think if there's gonna be a surprise, this is where it's gonna happen.
I think George Miller's going to win it as well.
Really?
I
Okay.
do, because I think the backlash of the Revenant is coming.
Well, it's kind of we're in it now.
No, I'm
Yeah.
saying I think people have been. They go, well, we definitely recognize Leo did a great job, but I had to sit through all that crap to watch Leo do this.
I mean, we may both be wrong on Oscar night.
Oh, I'm sure. Historically, we're not that great.
No, and that's fine. You know what? George Miller should win it, and he will win it. I think he will win it.
For Best Director. So every movie we just talked about is a Best Picture nominee. So let's talk about the final three, and then we'll do an overview.
Okay.
So the final three. So this is we got the Big Short, Bridge of Spies, Brooklyn, Mad Max Fury Road, The Martian, The Revenant, Room, and Spotlight. So the three we haven't talked about yet. We'll start with Bridge of Spies.
Bridge of Spies is a great film.
Well done. It's Spielberg.
It's Spielberg.
It feels Spielberg. It's
Yeah.
great. It's good. It's good Spielberg, not
People,
mediocre Spielberg.
you know, when you do this ranking sort of thing that people tend to do, yeah, it's probably a middle tier Spielberg movie, but it's really well done, and there's some sequences in it that are amazing, and the performances he got out of Hanks and Rylance are incredible. And yeah, it's not going to win, no way, but it's sure, why not? It's Spielberg, it should be here. But I hate to say, it sounds dismissive for me to say that, but
it's like John Williams being nominated for. He's not gonna win.
It's dismissive to say that because Spielberg has done so many great films so many times over the years.
That works against you, though.
Yeah, it does.
Because if you don't hit it out of the ballpark, like George Miller's done a bunch of movies, but when you kill it like you do with the
and this
Mad
is
Max,
the problem you have when you rank art like this. You
Yeah.
know, it's like how can you rank a movie like Bridge of Spies, which does what it does perfectly? Okay?
I was shocked at how well I liked it because I thought it was going to be another one of those again middle of the road Spielberg where he can It was engaging. It was fun. It was serious at times when it needed to be, but it told us a great story.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to win. And Brooklyn,
No, it's not going to win. And I kind of weird way, I don't think it deserves to be here.
I don't think it. No, I think it's an elaborate movie of the week.
Yeah. Where's Hateful Eight? Hateful Eight deserved to be here for damn sure. And if I was going to kick anything out for Hateful Eight, this would be the one.
Yeah, because actually I'm looking at it. That's the only one that I think does not belong here. Also, keep in mind that it's only 8 out of the 10 potential. They could have put 2 more in there.
They should have.
So
I don't
that's
know why
three-
Hateful Eight didn't get nominated.
That's
I
3
don't.
spots. Are there any other movies that should have been there?
I think Creed should have been there.
Creed?
I think, like I said earlier about the biopic issue, if it's Straight Outta Compton is just as good a biopic as any others, and they all get nominated. Why can't Straight Outta Compton get nominated? And it's a good movie. I think a film like Ex Machina could have been nominated. It's a fantastic film. It's a science fiction film that's really intelligent and has a lot to say. It could have been nominated. There are a lot of films that could have been nominated this year. The ones they came up with, I can't complain about. Except
No,
for
that's
maybe
actually I said
one,
Brooklyn's
but,
the only one
yeah.
because we've
Yeah.
talked about all of them now,
Yeah.
except for Martian. Ridley Scott did a fantastic job directing.
I want Ridley Scott just because I know he wants one. I want him to have a Best Director Oscar someday. He deserves it. And for
His
the
time
Martian
is running out.
Yeah, well, The Martian. It's funny. Now I write for ComingSoon.net, but I wrote for Ain't It Cool News, and my boss Harry Knowles has said that he felt like The Martian was a Ridley Scott's tribute to his brother Tony because it felt like a Tony Scott movie in a weird way, and I agree with that. I think it is his tribute to his brother, I kind of feel like that it's a shame that that he wasn't nominated for Best Director for this. Because like George Miller, he's been around for a long time. He's made some incredibly great films.
Oh, yeah.
Every year he's got something coming out. It's
He's
amazing.
made some stinkers and he's made some. He's made some great movies.
He is a great visual stylist. He can get great performances from a lot of different actors. He's done it before. He's made some of the greatest films of our time, and he deserved to be nominated. I think he deserved to be nominated for this. I would have nominated him over Inarritu.
Oh yeah, well,
Probably
Inarritu's,
over McCarthy too.
and I think Inarritu's got Eddie Redmayne disease, where he's the hot guy, and I mean, as long as he doesn't come out with a stinker, if he has another great movie next year, or
Here's the thing about the Martian, that he's not only dealing with a bunch of special effects. He's not only dealing with a performance that centers the film or he doesn't even interact with anybody. Outside of that, it's an ensemble piece. You have Jeff Daniels, you've got Sean Bean, you've got Jessica Chastain, you've got all the people on board the ship and on Earth who are trying to bring him home, and they're all connecting and doing performances. There's a lot going on in The Martian. Okay, I've not read the book, and I've heard that the book gets really
Technical.
kind of in the weeds, right? And he and Scott manages to get through all that to tell an effective story that's believable, right? He should have been nominated for Best Director. I want him to. This isn't a movie. This isn't a bad movie to win on.
No, this is a great movie because
Yeah,
it's one of those movies. It's the Neil deGrasse Tyson of movies where you get excited about science. And
Yeah.
Neil, whenever he talks, he gets you excited about science. That's the one thing that makes him different than every other astrophysicist in the world. Is that when you hear other astrophysicists talk, they don't get as excited. He gets you excited. It's fun. It's a cool thing.
There's a thing at the end of Apollo 13, which I really felt like this might be this generation's Apollo 13, even though it is a fictional story. One of my favorite lines of Apollo 13 is the end of the movie where Tom Hanks is saying, and as I look up in the sky at the moon, I have two questions. When do we go back, and who will that be? And that's the feeling I got at the end of The Martian. It's like, when do we get to go? Let's make this happen. And The Martian is such a positive film about exploration and science and love of these things. It deserves to be Best Picture. If it won, I wouldn't have a problem.
And of course, you can
You
go
know?
back to last season and listen to Dr. John Charles of NASA and I discuss The Martian in depth for a full episode.
Oh, cool.
And talk about how the fact that they went to Mars was the biggest fiction of that movie.
Yeah. Everything else is real. All that stuff is real.
Because the sad part is that of all that stuff that could happen, getting to Mars is the biggest fiction because we just don't have any. We don't have the desire or the money, and that's the saddest part of that whole movie.
Yep.
But we don't think it's going to win. The Big Short, we've decided, is definitely not going to win Best Picture. It did a great job, but The Revenant.
Here's the thing. I think we might have a split. I think George Miller may win. It may go the other way, too. George Miller may win Best Director and The Revenant win Best Picture. Or it could be Inarritu winning Best Director and Fury Road winning Best Picture.
Yeah.
I would actually be okay with either one of those.
If The Revenant wins Best Picture, I will be upset. If it wins Best Director, that's fine. I mean,
Well, it's like I said before. We're ranking art.
No,
and
no,
winning
I'm-
Best Pictures just
I'm
don't
not-
deserve the title.
I'm not ranking art. I'm telling you that's wrong.
Yeah.
The Room, I think, again, it's the guy's. You're telling me it's his.
I think it's his first film.
one.
His first
It's also
feature film.
I think it's too small a film. I'm thinking politics-wise. So when I get to the Best Picture thing, it's not what I think is the best. I think what are people going to vote?
How many people did it employ?
Yeah.
And how many American people did it employ? Which has Fury Road going against it?
Yeah. So that's where it comes down to me. I think it's personally between Spotlight and Fury Road. I think Spotlight hits on all the check marks. If you're going to do all the check marks of a Oscar winner, it's got all of those plus the voting. Everyone knows all the people in it.
This is actually a tougher call looking on paper than I realized. And the reason I'm saying that is because the Academy right now is very politically aware of things that are happening because of the big scandal. They have everybody all Oscar so white and all that other stuff. There's a way that The Big Short could weave its way into there.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't see anything on this list that is going to correct that problem. The Big Short winning is not going to correct that problem. It's a all white cast.
I can see it.
It doesn't. It's not doing any. It's not talking about. It's talking about class issues versus more race issues and some of the other things that actually are affecting the Oscars.
That's true.
So it is hitting a cultural touchstone. I just don't think it's hitting the correct one for the Oscars.
Okay, I can see that.
So I'm not saying you're wrong. I just disagree with that point. I think it's down to Spotlight, which I believe is a classic Oscar winner because if you're just going to make a list, great actors, a bunch of great actors, well written, it was well received. It had employed a bunch of people, like you said. But then again, I think Spotlight's going to win. I want Mad Max to win.
I want Mad Max to win. I think it's going to be The Revenant, but this one's a close call. It's closer than it looks.
It is because I think it's a three-way with The Revenant, and I think The Revenant is all on reputation, which is driving me crazy.
Yep.
Because it should not be.
Yep.
Well, this has been a lot longer than we thought it would take. Because you're like, I don't even think we have an hour. And I'm like, yeah, we've got an hour because we got six things.
We can get talky, man.
So I certainly appreciate everyone who listens. I know that I get a lot of feedback. about when we ever get together and do things. We should be back in a couple months to do
Spring, summer, right?
Basically, spring, summer. Because
Really, spring, summer, because we got the big stuff starts coming out in March. Really, now, kind of.
We'll be talking about stuff that starts in May. So you and I will see each other again at sometime in April to get ready for the summer, which is going to be another great summer.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to talk about, at least we'll be able to talk about things that happen in March and April, because everyone would have seen it. It's like talking to Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I hope you listen. The Oscars are the 28th on ABC, like they always are. Like I need to tell you guys, if you've listened this long, you're going to watch anyways. I will put everything on the website, including how well we do, like we do every year. Usually we suck.
We put our heart too much into it, and in our head, what we want to win is what we hope wins.
I usually do better on the technical stuff. This year it's tough because all my technical things.
The only technical one of the smaller awards that I know this year that I'm actually really excited for is an animated short called The World of Tomorrow, which you can watch on Netflix if you want to watch it. It's really, really cool. It's done by an Austin artist named Don Hertzfeld, and it's just a trip. It's a awesome animated short, so you should watch it if you get a chance.
Well, all my technical stuff, I have heartstrings for Star Wars: The Force Awakens because it was such a great movie, as we talked about at length.
I don't know. Did Mad Max Fury Road get nominated for score? I don't remember.
I don't think so. I think it's John Williams, of course. Encino Morricone.
Morricone should win. Morricone should.
And
win
then and then the other three were random weird things.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a Lifetime Achievement Award for because he's never won anything. I don't think he's been nominated for anything, has he?
I don't remember.
But, and this will be our last thing on the Oscars, the fact that he wrote it before he saw the movie tells me it is not a soundtrack. It is a song. It's a long piece of music that was adapted to the movie, not the other way around.
Tarantino's not the only director who've done that, though. The Wachowski brothers, the Wachowskis, not brothers. The Wachowskis have done that. So
were they nominated for Oscars?
I don't think Cloud Atlas was for the score. But
I rest my case. Thank you. But Alan, always great. Good luck. You are now at comingsoon.net.
Comingsoon.net is who I write for now. At this time, I haven't gotten. There will be reviews up on the site once you hear this podcast.
Yeah. So hey, I can look forward to reading stuff under your actual name, Alan Cerny.
No, I am Nordling on Twitter, Nordling CS on Twitter, but my name is Alan Cerny.
That's our show. Thanks, Alan, for spending a lot more time than he thought he would on this week's episode, and we wish him well at comingsoon.net. As always, you can email comments, questions, and guest suggestions to Craig at speakercraigprice.com. You can go to realitycheckpodcast.com to sign up for the newsletter, as well as links to download our app on iTunes, Google Play, and Kindle. You'll also see links to donate to Tom Singer's fundraiser for the Kate Singer Endowment for Craniofacial Research. See you next week.